Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Boyne coming at you here for our local people in Asheville and from around the world. We have a special guest today, Mr. Graham Duvall. Not only is Graham a practice member, that's how we kind of met, but he's also a business person and has some great information to share with us. Welcome, Graham.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
He's in his car office getting things done today. I admire his ability to compartmentalize what he has going on. And tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up as Graham Duvall.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say, thanks for patience with being in my car office today. One of my big roles right now is sales and just spreading the word of what Mother Earth Food is doing. So I'm often on the road, so I appreciate the flexibility with being
Oh,
that.
you're welcome. I've
Absolutely.
been there myself as a former sales rep. My car was my office. I spent the most amount of time in the car seat or my bed. That was my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks. So my name is Graham Duvall. I basically grew up in the greater Atlanta, Georgia area and studied at the University of Georgia and had a background in horticulture and gardening and farming. And so when I moved to Asheville about 12 years ago with my business partner, and ex-wife now, but a very close friend, we decided that with our background, she had a business background and I had a food background, that we were really primed to do something, to create something. So I sold my house and she cashed in her 401k and we started Mother Earth Food here in Asheville 12 years ago.
There's a lot of juice right there, Graham. But what got you into health and wellness? Was that just influence of your family, or did you have something go on in your life?
Absolutely. So my family has some mental health struggles. I had some depression in my early 20s and just kind of going through the challenges in early 20s, especially knowing now that we know that the brain's not even fully developed until 25 and young people can tend to make not healthy choices. Um, I definitely put myself in a position to really needing to take responsibility at a greater level for my health. And so, especially as I really begin to heal mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, in a lot of ways in my late 20s and 30s, when I started Mother Earth Food, I really began to dive into nutrition and really starting to look at food maybe as medicine and as things that medical doctors and other individuals just were not telling me. So I needed to really take personal responsibility in my hands for my own health in a brand new way.
So as you matured growing up, you felt the need to be more responsible for your health?
Well, it's that or fall apart.
Yes. And you probably realize when you do fall apart, you still have the same problem, right?
They get the same problems. Exactly.
So Graham touched on something really important here, and not only through my chiropractic lens, but also playing sports and coaching sports, I saw this phenomenon occur that Graham was talking about with your brain not being fully developed. And I would have like pro level high school athletes, and they're on a high level competitive baseball team. And the coach one day tells them to do something, they do it perfect. And the next day they run around the circle the other way. And the coach would be in the dugout, like pulling his hair out and just being the observer as a trainer. I'd just sit there laughing. I'm like, don't you know his brain's not totally solidified in the frontal lobe yet? And that's just how it's gonna be. And I think a lot of young kids don't have people around them to help them understand that and guide them through that moment. And then they get labeled and judged, and they're not even done growing yet, and they're already labeled and taking drugs and in rehabs and stuff that just isn't. I don't think that's very good for them. What do you think about that, Graham?
I think it is such an important thing to talk about for individuals, for parents, for children, for teenagers, adolescents. I feel as I get older, I feel like I recognize, at least in my own experience, that when the brain doesn't fire and function along with the nervous system really optimally, there are a lot of things that are happening. And there's a lot of things on the surface that are happening that our doctors or other individuals could label as depression or ADHD or a thyroid issue. But underneath the lining of that is often, I feel, kind of these, I don't want to use I think karma is a good word. It's cause and effect. When we have traumatic brain injuries, or don't have the right nutrition, or we have too much screen time, or we're just not developing in a way that would be more naturally based, then we're going to have a lot of things to deal with. And a lot of times it's misdiagnosed, which I appreciate so much about chiropractic care, because it's treating everything holistically. So we're looking at all of the aspects of care and not just putting a diagnosis maybe on a surface level symptom. So I really respect that.
Yeah, and that's what we met. You know, you came in with a set of symptoms, but we realized that that wasn't the problem, and we were able to get to the root cause of it, just like you're trying to do with Mother Earth. And just want
Right.
to give a little shout out to Graham and his former partner Andrea for being fantastic parents. We supported a show over the weekend from the Junior Theater here of Asheville, and I brought my children, and Graham was greeting everybody outside. My daughter is a little skeptical of strangers, and she was wide open to him.
Oh.
And you can see the candor of your son on stage, and it's a good mark of both of your parenting because he nailed his lines.
He did. He did. He was very excited to be out there. It was a really great production of Finding Nemo Jr. So it was his first little theatrical production. So
yeah, my daughter wanted to go the next day. She was so upset. She was almost crying. She had the playbill and the tickets and like, Daddy, can we go again?
Yeah. Great thing for families.
So, Graham, it sounds like you felt so adamant about your health that you and your partner cashed in all your chips and found your way to Asheville. What was it about Asheville that attracted you to come here?
Yeah, well, I grew up. It's a great question. I grew up coming to summer camp here. I was fortunate to go to Camp Rockmont, which is where it's in Black Mountain, where the Lake Eden Art Festival is held every year. And so I had these mountains really etched in my soul from a very young age. And so as soon as I had an opportunity to move here, really made a lot of sense when I met my my ex-wife now, Andrea, and we were kind of on a mission when we first came here. And our, so it was, we were always kind of destined to be here. And since our time here, we've really tried to create a unique business model here, which is Mother Earth Food. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's a farm to door delivery service for local and organic produce, and then artisan, organic, pasture raised eggs, meat, dairy products, just ways that it's basically a farmer's market delivery service. We're really trying to help farmers scale outside of what they're doing with just direct to consumer farmers market sales, and trying to really reach the wider public with so many busy households and so many people that we're usually really conditioned to shop at the grocery store. And nowadays we do have a lot of good options. There's a lot more organic available, but unfortunately, there's still a real lack of understanding and education about nutrient dense foods. Really, what is nutrient dense foods? Where is it found? What is the quality of different foods from local pasture raised things all the way down to industrial or conventional. So those were things that we really dove into, and tying it along with healthcare as well. I felt it was really important because I noticed over the years that the healthier and healthier I ate was really good, but I continued to have to need to eat better and better and better in order to feel really optimally the way I wanted to feel. And I could tell that even eating sometimes organic, but not even the healthiest things, was still not getting me to where I wanted to be.
So I want to take a deep dive into those nutrient-dense foods and organic. We talked about that little tongue-in-cheek last time about what's popular as organic, but how in the world have you managed a relationship with your ex in a business? Some people can't even be in the same room or send a text message. And here you are side by side, co-parenting effectively, quite obviously, running a business. And I know you chalk it up to doing the work, but how does one have that bandwidth?
It's great. I mean, that's certainly the work that's been the work of my life, and that's been the work of the last 5 years in particular. My ex-wife and I we were married for 7 years, and just the stresses of life, and just for me, just not knowing, I just don't know what I know. I didn't know what I know now in terms of the importance of cultivating, really cultivating, intimate romantic relationships separate from business partnerships, and really being able to, speak to my partner personally very different than the way that I speak to her in a business sense, and really respecting her as a woman and a mother, and then also respecting her as a business partner. And so really, when we get stressed and we get into places of challenge, we will typically project those things that we have. And it's usually all about us and our inability to be able to cope with the challenges of life. And so this has been my work the last 5 years, is really trying to take a radical look in the mirror about how I'm showing up in the world, and taking responsibility for every aspect of my life. And so that seems to me the only solution out of being in a victimized place. And certainly we'll all have those times in life that life tends to kind of maybe tend to gang up on us, where we'll have those challenges. But the only way through is taking, I would say, is taking radical personal responsibility. So that's been my goal at staying really connected, personally and professionally, with my ex-partner Andrea, and really noticing all the old patterns and ways that created our breakdown in our marriage, and starting fresh and starting over, and that takes, the challenge is catching it in real time, catching the projections, catching the way we're talking, catching and really coming back to default pattern of just absolute radical respect and trust and valuing. Um, but in our case, it's different because we have to. It's two different ways. I have to learn to relate with my partner personally and as a co-parent, and with our son, and then also in a business partner. So it's always an ongoing process. I'm not perfect, but I feel like it's really incredible work, and it makes me a much better man, father, and just all around human. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for being vulnerable with that. And
yeah,
the message, my takeaway from that is that whether you're with someone or not, we still have work to do with the relationships with the people that we care about.
absolutely.
And I think like you did, you start with forgiving yourself and being accountable for yourself. And the nice thing about that, that's all free, people. The hard thing is that there's currency in victimhood, and there's a lot of people out there perpetrating that, and that is just a very vicious cycle, and it doesn't serve anybody to be proactive and move on with life. Because when you get married, as it's two people with their problems agreeing to work through them, and then you have a child that you're trying to foster, and somehow I think happiness gets thrown out there through the internet, and you're not supposed to be happy. That's a state of something else. Being in a relationship with people is not about your own happiness. There's a higher purpose there, and obviously you've somehow found that conclusion, and you've got this beautiful business, Mother Earth. For people that aren't from Asheville, don't know, they see all these big beautiful mountains, but inside there's these little nooks and crannies. And tell us how that property came out that you took me to visit, how that came about.
Yeah, it's a neat story. So farmland preservation is a big theme nowadays because of just our urbanization of our rural areas, and having enough farmland is critical, because right now, a lot of our food is grown in California and Mexico, but they have and are continuing to have bigger and bigger water challenges. Not to mention that the way that the farming is done industrially out west in the desert often really desiccates the soil. So it's taking soil, which, by definition would have mycorrhizal fungi and bacteria and living organisms that create vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. And as those industrial, farms scale, grow, they typically reduce those soils to just dirt, right? So you lose that soil organic matter, you lose that nutritional viability of the soil, and then things go away. So right now out west is a pretty severe issue, right? And we're not really seeing it too much as a consumer. We definitely see inflation in food costs, but the production of scale is still being done. But over the next number of years, having strong local food systems, regional food systems, are absolutely the name of the game for both, local regional food sovereignty, being able to feed ourselves, but also nutrient density in our local foods will typically be higher than what's coming from California and Mexico, because of greater accessibility to freshness, and maybe lands that haven't been overfarmed, overgrazed. So there's a lot of other science and complexity behind that, but I feel like that's a good generalization of why it's so important that we spend time and energy on doing this. And Asheville is a special place. We've got a lot of people that really value local food and local farmland, and there's some lands that are being preserved, but also, unfortunately, a lot of lands are going away. And so, there's a lot of development still happening in this area that's just does not have foresight to the future. So, but those are challenges that are in the public air right now.
Somebody had the bright idea to put all these organic farms out in the valley of California, where it's an arid desert, and they got to pipe all this water in and monitor the temperature. So,
Yep.
and then you got to truck it across country,
Yep.
and then it dies when you get it home in your fridge 3 days later. And so it doesn't really make much sense. And I don't think people understand when we were talking about what the canopy looks like with the soil over at the property. of how much sunlight destroys that. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that, so like people
Yeah,
can understand the difference of like high vibing food versus food that just looks like food.
that's great. Yeah. So come back. Your question was about the complex that we're on. We're in Mother Earth Food has a little warehouse in the Smith Mill Works complex of West Asheville. It's a cool old greenhouse warehouse complex that.
Oh, we lost them.
And
Oh,
sorry about
there you
that.
are.
In the 19. Yep. Sorry about that. So this complex was founded in the 1940s, and by the 1970s, it was a leading ornamentals grower in the Southeast for ornamental flowers. And I think by the late 90s, the kind of the advent of large scale greenhouse production began to put smaller greenhouses out of business. So this facility that we're on, which makes up about 5 to 7 acres of greenhouse glass and greenhouses, just finally kind of went under in the late 90s and sat here until about 2010 when the current owner, Michael Klatt, came in and purchased the property with the idea of really kind of creating a local food hub um, and having an opportunity for a lot of cool business to be able to operate, maybe almost as like a small business incubator, and coming together and people sharing ideas and resources, and especially farmers, because it is so challenging for farmers, especially in small scale, to to make ends meet. Right? If they usually our local farmers model is if they have a CSA model, which is your consumer supported agriculture, and they have a tailgate market presence, then they can sell their food retail, and so they get their maximum dollar from that, and that kind of helps them to have enough money to be able to stay in business. But when farmers sell wholesale, so they're losing 30 cents on a dollar, 50 cents on the dollar or more if they're selling to a grocery store, then that makes it much more challenging, and they have to grow much larger volumes in order to stay in business. And so, one of the ideas of this complex by the owner was to be able to do that, to provide, an area for farmers to grow a little bit of larger scale. And that's what this complex is. And so, the history of it is it when we moved in 2016, there was about 12, maybe 12 businesses and about half a dozen or eight, maybe 6 to 8 farmers. And they were here, and there was some local success. Um, but what happened was by about 2018 or 19, a lot of those businesses went out of business. And why that is in 2000 and probably 17, 18, we began to see a lot more USDA organic at Walmart or Costco or Aldi's or Ingles. So you begin to have much more of an industrial organic presence, especially in produce in our grocery stores. And so that was made possible. The USDA kind of allowed a good bit of farmland out west to not have to go through the USDA organic requirements of being dormant without spray for 3 years. And so what happened was we had millions of acres that was allowed to become certified organic to scale to consumer demand. But the problem about, if that makes sense, hope that makes sense, in that time is that the price of organic food went down because now it's being grown industrially. And the consumer, we didn't know the difference between something that was grown locally, that would come from a farmer that was really taking care of the soil and the ecosystem around them, and something that was just being grown out in the desert. With a lot of times the food in the desert is just being pumped with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which are those three macronutrients that allows a food to grow, but won't necessarily have hardly any vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that we actually need to be healthy and for our brains and nervous systems to function properly. Um, so what happened in Smith Mill Works is we lost a lot of our local farmers because chefs and wholesalers and other people began to buy cheaper organic produce because it was a lot less than what our local farmers were able to sell to them. So now our complex has Mother Earth Food in it, and there's some other small businesses in it. But right now it's a challenge in our community for farmers to grow local and organic and sell it wholesale, which is what we want, because we want to really grow our local food ecosystem in our community.
Yeah, I think people see organic and they think it's all the same. And we kind of touching on your point here. We touched on the soil and then the spray, but then isn't I think when we discussed, isn't there a time where the soil needs to heal and
That's
we get
right.
replanted and everything? So what you're telling me is that the USDA kind of circumvented that problem, didn't follow procedure,
No,
and you're out there buying organic, but it's not as nutrient dense as you think, and then it kills the local market.
it's really not. In fact, the USDA kind of hijacked the whole organic mission from the very beginning. When the Rodell Institute in Pennsylvania kind of founded the kind of the language around what organic was, it included farming the soil, which means that the soil will have the soil will be taken care of above all else, because the soil is where life is all coming from, right? And so you take care of all aspects of not just growing or not just growing healthy organic food, not spraying it with pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides, but actually taking care of the soil, taking care of the laborers, and really treating things holistically. And so when the USDA took that language, they excluded all of the things that were not probably within, highest profitability for shareholders, in terms of the whole way that corporations can hijack higher principles. And it's just simply, when we look at the bottom line for the way that a lot of corporations are working, it's profit, which is a neat way now, since you have triple bottom line companies. B Corp companies now can have a triple bottom line motto, which is people, profits, and the planet, right? And so that's where we want business to go. And when we're consumer is shopping for healthy foods, it's good to know this. And so we have a whole new label now that's starting to take hold in the industry, called regenerative organic. And regenerative organic goes back to the idea of nutrient dense food, right? Taking care of the soil, making sure the soil organic matter, right, is taken care of through cover cropping, through proper resting of the soil, treating the soil with compost teas, and just increasing the life, in soil. I think I've read that like within a square foot of really rich, healthy soil are more organisms than there are humans on the planet. So when you have that, you can guarantee your food will have the minerals, vitamins, and nutrients that we actually need to thrive.
Yeah, well, I mean, the hypocrisy is crazy because for years, you'll go to a farmer's market and they couldn't afford to buy into the organic name, even though they were doing everything appropriately. And then they go ahead and bastardize the organic name for putting profit over people.
That's right.
So the small guy could not win in that situation.
Yeah.
So around 2018, there was a shift in your market, but there was also a shift in the global mindset there for a small time, with
It
a little
was.
story that coupled around.
It was. And that's where we get that term greenwashing, right? So the term greenwashing is, people branding that they're having, a really, high quality organic product that takes care of the people, that takes care of the planet. And it's not necessarily true unless we do that investigation. So that's where, again, this theme of taking personal responsibility into, what are we buying? What are we putting our energy and attention into? Really studying things, because nowadays it's more important than ever, um, for to be able to make good choices. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you, the food that you put in your mouth and your kid's mouth is the most important decision you'll ever make, also including the water. And seeing the difference in my kid's health, and I'm sure with your son, you see the difference of him and other kids that live on what I call SAD, the standard American diet,
yeah,
that creates so much inflammation. And I'm a firm stickler that the government will never have your best interest at heart, except to try to kill you.
yeah, yeah, or keep people sick, right?
Yeah,
Because
and that's what we see a lot of, is just they're keeping you at baseline, barely keeping you alive, like in slavery, to just take as much money as they can before you die.
as long as we're disempowered, we'll never really ask the real questions that make, really systemic change, which is what really everyone wants. So
Yeah,
until we're able to really have the health and the vitality and the empowerment and ask the right questions, and enough of us can come together and do it and stay humble to know that, we only know what we know, and it takes armies of us to really make a big difference. So I think humility and gratitude are keys in there with that, but making these radical choices for self-care so that we can actually feel good enough to really let our external world be a reflection of what our internal reality is. So we feel so good within ourselves that we're able to really transmit that in the world.
Yeah, living congruent is so important, and I will tell you that we all have this power because we don't have to fight them, we don't have to yell at them. We just don't shop there. If you don't like a restaurant, you don't need to leave them a bad review. Just don't go back. Our actions speak way louder than our words, and where we put our money and our effort and our energy, you'll be much better when you have food with love in your life, for sure. Did you freeze up, Graham? All right, technical difficulty here, everybody. Let's see if we can get Graham back. Hey, there he is.
Hey, I apologize.
It's all good. We'll edit this out later, but I don't want to quit on you. We got so much more juice to cover here.
We do. I apologize for that. Yep.
And speaking of juice, what I've noticed when I moved to Asheville, people that don't live here don't understand the farmer market scene's like a real deal. There's like it's like a thing. People have their day, their spot, their guy. They're pushing people, little kids out of the way to get their stuff. Like you said earlier, people do buy a CSA and they pick it up there, and that's where the farmers make a profit. But what I noticed is the soil here, especially on the south slope, and I'm sure you know more pockets and throughout all the mountains, but I would pick up some organic spinach, which is known to spoil from regular retail food store within days, and this stuff would last 2 or 3 weeks. And so right away, I kind of knew something was going on. I just didn't understand the difference of the soil and how the USDA changed things. How has Mother Earth Foods benefited the local farmer to overcome, them? Because it's time consuming for them to go to a farmer's market, and they also can't afford to go to the retail store and take that much of a haircut. because then they got to grow more, but that costs more. So how
Right.
have you guys bridged that gap for them?
Yes, we've tried a lot of different things over the last 11 years. Our story goes that we kind of grew. We were growing when we started from 2011 to 2016. We were kind of on track as a good growing small business, and then we kind of hit a wall in 2017 or so, when the kind of growth around organic, as I talked about, kind of stagnated. So we had a real challenge, and really stayed there for a number of years and kind of held on as a small business until COVID started. And so when COVID hit, because we have a delivery service, and we're a I forgot what the term was. It was like there were some businesses allowed to stay open because
Essential.
essential businesses,
Some
exactly.
other adult told some other person that their business is essential or not. You're not important. Like,
I know that.
it's like the hall monitor in grammar school. Like, what are you doing out here?
Yep, I know. So that is a whole different can of worms we could go down. But it benefited our service because we had grown and had infrastructure in place for exponential growth, which we did. We grew from essentially 350 deliveries a week to almost 1,600 deliveries a week in about 6 weeks in March of 20.
Wow, that's crazy.
So the demand was there all over Asheville, which was pretty astonishing, as well as we had the food because of our farmers, who a lot of the farmers who didn't almost sometimes even sell to us, who had clients at local restaurants. Since the restaurants were shut down, we were now their pipeline for staying open and staying in business. And so this was a great reciprocal relationship, is that we were able to kind of put these things together. And so that really served us. And over the last, I'd say 18 months, things have slowed down a lot. So we've moved back towards baseline of where we were at before COVID, but we're in a more sustainable place now, which is great. And we've also learned so much as a business to be able to really, it's taken us a decade. I would say, maybe a lot of entrepreneurs can get it quickly, but for us, it's definitely, for Andrea and I, my business partner, it's taken us a decade to really kind of figure out really where our core values are, how to create a profitable business, how to understand business really well, especially in food where margins are very slim. So it's very challenging to create even break even local food business. It's almost like magic, really. And so, but the big thing that we're noticing though is that we work best when we have maybe 3, 4, 5 really good local farms that really know their business model well. So a few of our farms are growing pretty much just for us, and they figured out their business margin, and their crop production in a way that is profitable for them, allows them to do what they do, and then it works for us as well. It's because we are paying a higher than wholesale premium for really high quality local produce for what we're doing, but it's still in the wholesale. It's still wholesale. So those farms that we have in particular, it works for them. And then we also have a couple other major partners that do have CSA, they do have tailgate presence, but they also are growing specialty crops in volume just for us. And right now we're doing between 500, a little over 500 deliveries a week. And so when we buy kale, we're buying, 400 bunches of kale per week. So this is a really great way for local farms to be able to scale, but not be in a huge pressure of, say, growing for someone like Ingles or another wholesaler where, you have to have a huge infrastructure in place to be able to do that. So
So this is interesting. So the business, you took a little spike during a certain period of time, kind of like a pressure test, learned a lot about yourself, and
we
then
did.
things kind of fell flat. What do you think was some of the drop off once all the restrictions were lifted? Where did the customer base migrate
Yeah,
to?
that's a great question. And again, I think it moves back to, I think the messages that we got a lot was people were really wanting to shop themselves, right? So it is our service, the at-risk community, or that we're able to service through some of the nonprofits in the local area, people without cars, people that are challenged to make it to the store. these are people that we love to serve, right? And everyone else, it's a luxury to be able to have local organic food delivered right to your door. So it's a service that people don't have to use if they don't want it. But the big thing that a lot of people don't know is, again, about what is nutrient dense food. And a lot of our consumers have gone back to Whole Foods. They've gone to Ingles or Earth Fare, and a lot of this food is marginally less expensive than us. But I would say from a nutrient standpoint, probably a lot of it is way lower than what we're offering. And this is something because we don't have a scanner tool that can show us what the density is in food, or we're not really aware of how it's actually affecting our mental, emotional, physical health. So we've lost, I think, a lot of customers and consumers from just going back to habit of going to the grocery store because it's cheaper. They like picking things out, and there's nothing wrong with this. But I feel like this is where Mother Earth Food needs to do a really good job at educating the consumer, and then our consumers also have to do their research, um, and really learn and about what really is in the food that we're buying, and is the
Yeah.
nutrient really there.
Not
So
gonna lie, Graham, I got a special relationship with picking out my bananas. I got to have that one little pack. It's just
yeah,
like that. But I think there's two things that you guys are nailing in the market, and if people have been listening, the difference of nutrient dense foods is
yes,
the number one message. If we can get anyone to understand this, where just because it's organic doesn't mean it's nutrient dense.
no,
Okay, and then it's part of a macro crop whole industry. Meanwhile, you guys have these 5 partnerships now with local farmers that some have presences other places, some do not, but they're actually growing you specialty crops that are super nutrient dense
that's right.
delivered to your door. Because the number one complaint I hear of all families, and I was in the same boat as you, having children and being married to your business partner is totally bananas.
Oh,
It's not for the faint of heart, and you got to ride that storm. And it's not always successful for everybody. But everyone's complaint is time, and you're either going to delegate in your life or you're going to die.
that's
And
right.
if everyone tries to control everything they do, from their laundry to their food shopping to this to that, well, how much time did you actually get to put into your business outside of just showing up to go through the paces versus being creative and all this other stuff? So, like, I work like a madman, and that's all I do all day long. And as much as I love going to the food store, why would I not call your service that has the relationships with all the farms that I like, the
Absolutely.
nutrient dense foods? It's trusted. I'm supporting another local business, and it's delivered to my door, and I don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're hitting on the no-brainers with this. And this is what I would love to tell everybody in Asheville that's interested in expanding out and really accessing the highest quality food, which a lot of people do. A lot of people will shop, they'll get some of their food from the farmers market, they'll get some of their food from the grocery store, maybe they'll have an online service that provides some. But the big thing is that our food is the most important thing. And one statistic that's great that maybe some of us don't know is about 50 years ago, our average incomes, we spent, as a society, about 5% of our average income was spent on healthcare 50 years ago, and about 20%, if not more, was on food, including growing our own food. And so nowadays that number is reversed. So we're spending 20% or something on healthcare and way less on food. So you're either going to pay the doctor or the farmer, in terms of your food choices. And I love to think about it like that, because food is medicine. Hippocrates said that, and that's our focus with that.
That is totally worth a t-shirt. Pay the doctor or the farmer.
Yeah, it's big. It's big. It's a big one. But we just simply don't know. We simply don't know because it's not taught in schools. Our medical doctors are an integral part of our society, and certainly have put me back together again with some of the surgeries that I've had. But I don't think any medical doctors take any classes on nutrition. So there's no correlation in terms of their own knowledge, unless it's self-taught, between modern medical issues and nutrition. And so there's a huge gap there that, and that's a long thing that we could go down, but it's important to know in terms of the information that people receive of where is disease actually coming from.
Yeah,
So,
until recently, just the past few years, medical school had zero nutrition classes. They threw in a couple just to say they did it,
okay.
and they teach it to us in chiropractic school, but it's related with biochemistry, and it's just so much going on that a lot of people have a hard time embracing it. But just look at those health markers. Look at the lines of
Yeah.
disease with heart disease and carotid artery disease and lung cancers, and any kind of cancer. They're all due to inflammation in the body, and we do have markers for that within our blood work. But we also have to know what we're looking at, not just look at a baseline of some average person from 50 years ago and say that that's okay. And then they're also changing the markers to go within new boundaries to diagnose people with new diseases they don't even have, and then that's altering all their health on these synthetic drugs, synthetic diet, synthetic death, synthetic coffin, basically.
Yep.
So you gotta, I think having information, like you said, is super important, to help people make a good decision for their health. I'm not forcing my solution down their throat. I'm not forcing your solution down their throat. Right. But they should be able to have both sets of information and discern what they feel is best for them and their situation. And this way they're held accountable for the outcome, because it's really not me. I don't want to be in a codependent relationship with people. I just want to give them the best information humanly possible to say, here's what I've learned. This is what I see. This is what I recommend. But it's really up to you to be accountable for yourself.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And this conversation of taking responsibility is big. And oftentimes, I would say that if somebody had a life coach or a therapist or a friend, confidant, that, before sometimes we can even make those radical personal choices, there's work to do in the background. So sometimes things are not simple in order to make these better choices. But if we can find the medicine that we need individually, every individual got very specific medicines, whether it's like an herbal medicine or a pharmaceutical, or they have a specific doctor or a therapist or a coach or a friend, whatever it is that's going to help us to be able to eliminate our excuses, eliminate the unconscious patterns that are preventing us from taking better care of ourselves. That's what we need, because we got to get to even begin to run the race. We've got to get up to the starting line, and I think that's oftentimes a challenge in life. And so
I think it comes down to mindset. A lot of people disqualify themselves from the race before they even get there. And, we were raised by parents where they trusted their doctor implicitly. And as long as they said they weren't sick, that was good enough. And there are still people that if someone was to tell you you're not sick or bleeding from an orifice, that you're healthy, they're okay with that. And especially here in Asheville and Western North Carolina, people move here to be happy and healthy. It's like a thing for them, the value set to have a really high quality natural health situation, high quality foods, and they like that. And they come from all different parts of the country with that value set because they actually want to be healthy. So I think both of our brands merge into the market of people that want to be healthy, but we can't just put people by the wayside because of lack of education. Some people just don't know any better, and they've been indoctrinated in thinking what is normal. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, and I always tell people, start with one meal a day.
Yeah, that's right.
Master that, and whatever that is and looks like for you to make it more tangible. You don't have to redo everything and just totally upset your life, because you're going to get frustrated and quit. You're going to think this is too crazy, but if you could just master one thing at a time, I think we could have a better success rate with people. They want to be healthy, they just don't know how, or they're at the wrong type of doctor, the wrong type of food store. And nothing wrong with the commercial food stores. They, served us very well, but there's certain aisles there that we should be avoiding at all costs.
For certain. Well, I think the whole model of food has been to try to make it cheap, and so we're really getting what we pay for. And I don't think we really realize the consequences of our diets up until maybe the last decade or two. It's just the information has not been clear, but it's clear now. Definitely, that disease and inflammation is correlated directly to the things that we're putting in our mouth and the care that we're bringing through our own exercise and seeking out of professionals that like you, who really will help people look at all aspects of not just brain and nervous system health, but every aspect of their health, to really ask the real questions of how to get well, how to be healthy, and how to be able to move forward in life, right? To not live in I hate to use the word mediocrity, but David Goggins, the great inspirational motivational speaker, he really speaks of that a lot of humans, maybe a lot of us, are only living 40% of our capacity. And so a lot of times the work has got to be done on the front end so that we can even make choices towards accessing that other 50 or 60%. But it's there, and we can move to create extraordinary lives for ourselves and others, and really, move into a life of service, which, of all of the things that makes, helps us to really feel that deep fulfillment. That's a big part of it. But often very challenging to get to when we're in survival mode, or we're just barely kind of eking by, which we've all been through, or maybe still going through. But this is the road that we take in order
I always say be stronger than your excuses, people. And our ancestors survived all kinds of threats and attacks. So we're already on top of the heap here. We live in the Western society.
yep.
We have no problems except for the ones that we create with our mindset and our lack of action on our nerve flow, exercise, and water. And in your case, the food. And now you're trying to deliver it to people's doors. Click up a button, you're at work, done. You
Easy.
go home and you're ready to rock and roll, and you spend more time with your family and kids and enjoy them with the healthy foods.
I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I think a service like this, and it's the small local food hub models. The models. There's a lot of cooperative models. There's for-profit models, but it's, creating strong local food hubs where community can come together, learn, and really get and access what we need to be healthy. I
Yeah,
mean,
I never think we're never going to change the global by changing global policy, but we can change from the inside out, both with ourselves and the people we care about, and that carryover effect into our community, and make be a model for the rest of the modern societies that it can be done. And I think we're right at that point in the next 10 years here in this community. As more people come that want to be happy and healthy, I think you're going to see it's going to change dramatically.
I agree. I agree. I think it's people are responding, and they are learning, and we're growing at a rapid rate, and and we need to. Our world is infinitely more complex, and that in order to be able to metabolize, so to speak, this complexity, we've got to step up. We've got to step up and have healthy brains, nervous systems, bodies, and be in a place of receptivity and humility to be able to pivot, and knowing we're wrong, and knowing we've made errors, and figure out ways to course correct efficiently. And that includes the care of our bodies, right? We can really are only as strong as our bodies and brains are going to be able to allow us to do.
Yeah, well, I'm happy you're out there doing what you got to do, Graham. You definitely walk the walk and talk the talk because you put the work in. We met when you weren't feeling so hot, and now look at all the changes, both not in your personal life but professional. And now we're sitting here having this talk and showing people what it takes. And there's a whole community of people, if they want to take that next step, willing to support them. No one's going to leave you hanging.
Yep.
We're here, we got you, and we're gonna, as we share what we learn from them of what their challenges were and how to help them, and maybe some of the other people they care about. Because it's not just that one person; it's the 10
Right.
people in their circle too. And now we're here in this information age, and we know better. So let's take some action. How can people connect with you, Graham?
Yeah, I'd say this first. I really have appreciated my relationship with you, and I've learned so much about chiropractic care. And I felt for many, many years that one of the keys to health is the kind of ancient yogis thousands of years ago had it, that they knew the brains and the nervous systems were kind of the key to our life force. Um, and so my just being able to take really good care of myself and really helping to heal my spine and brain over the last number of months, I've felt tremendous better, and have been able, my even just the nutrition and my exercise regimes have been able to increase because my spine and brain are have increased their overall vitality. So
Fantastic. And I
I
love
really,
when you bring your son to your visits too, because you're teaching him how to be healthy
that's
through your
right.
own experience as well. And that's the best lesson we can do is like, we're going to make a day of health. We're going to take care of our bodies, and then we're going to go visit the farm, or we're going to order from the farm.
That's right.
And then they have the next generation can learn from that and see what it's like, not just to ignore problems, but to face them head on and realize that through that adversity, there's a gift on the other side that you never even thought possible for yourself.
That's right. Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, my son's enjoyed coming in. And people can they can find our business. It's motherearthfood.com. It's easy to register. You put in information and a credit card, and then we will send you weekly newsletters. Our menu changes from week to week. People can customize their own fruit and vegetable selections. They can order just a local in season kind of multi-farm CSA box. They can add meat, eggs, dairy, highest quality products. It's a great service to the community, and we need customers, right? In order to do this thing, we need people. So
I'm going to drop this bomb. They have sourdough, people. Sourdough. Homemade sourdough breads. So we're going to put that in the show notes. And I just want to say thanks to Graham for being our guest today. And we'll talk to everybody soon.